So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today we're going to take a look at a build for the Sancti Tigris. Now, I do have multiple setups for this, basically one for each faction, so please be patient, I will go over all of them. Now, this is a pretty cheap for Forma build, and what we're going to do with that Forma is, first of all, Forma away the D into either a V or a dash, so in the end, you will end up with either 3 Vs and 3 dashes, or 4 Vs and 2 dashes. Doesn't really matter because the build is going to fit either way. So the first setup that you're looking at right now is for the Infested, and we're going to use Primed Point Blank for a ridiculous amount of damage, Hell's Chamber for some multi-shot, Sweeping Serration for a lot of slash damage, and Cleanse Infested, which is going to multiply all the damage we have on the weapon by 30% if we use it against the Infested. And while 30% may not sound like a lot, trust me, it is. And then I'm using Charge Shell and Contagious Spread for corrosive damage, and Incendiary Coat with Blaze for more raw damage and also fire damage. And as you can see with this setup, you're going to have a lot of bloody damage. So you have 900 impact damage, 900 puncture damage, 15.8 thousand slash damage, 13.5 thousand heat damage, and 16.2 thousand corrosive damage, which, let's not forget, is multiplied by 30% thanks to Cleanse Infested. Now, if you move on to the Grineer setup, we're going to swap out Cleanse Infested for Cleanse Grineer, big surprise there, and we're going to run Charged Shell with Incendiary Coat and Blaze for radiation damage, and we're also going to throw in Chilling Grasp for some cold damage. Now, I thought about running viral damage, so it would be radiation and viral, but since Sancti Tigris has so much slash damage, I don't really think it's worth losing Blaze over a little bit of viral damage, because you're just gonna blast through the cloned flesh anyway with all the slash damage. Now, let's move on to the Corpus setup, where we'll once again swap the Cleanse mod to be the Cleanse Corpus mod, big surprise once again, and we're gonna run Charge Shell and Chilling Grasp for magnetic damage, and Incendiary Coat with Blaze for heat damage. Now, you could run gas damage with this, and it would not make that big of a difference, because gas damage does less damage against flesh, and heat damage does less damage against proto shields, which would basically just balance itself out, because if you do less damage against flesh, that doesn't matter because you have a lot of slash damage, and if you do less damage against proto shields, it once again doesn't matter because you have magnetic damage. So it is just basically up to you. And finally, if you want to fight the Corrupted, we're going to go back to config A, which is the Infested one, and we're going to swap Cleanse Infested for either Seeking Fury for a little bit of utility, where you're going to get a bit of punch through, which is always nice with the shotgun, and also a bit of fire rate, or you can swap it for either Shell Shock or Toxic Barrage for higher corrosive damage. Now, unfortunately, since we don't have a Bane or a Cleanse mod for the Corrupted, this is the weakest out of all the setups. Now, I intentionally took this into the Void because it's kind of the worst case scenario, and I avoided using Corrosive Projection. So this is what you're going to get if you take this build into the Void. I was able to last for 40 minutes, and after that I left because I ran out of ammunition. Alright, my carrier died, and some of the enemies, especially Bombards and Eximus Bombards, took few too many shots to down, and I ran out of ammunition, which would have been fun. I could have used a couple of ammo restores, and I could have gone for maybe 10 or 20 more minutes, which is amazing considering this is kind of the worst case scenario for this weapon. And on a side note, I was also using Seeking Fury rather than Toxic Barrage or Shell Shock, so I had a little bit less damage than you can squeeze out of this weapon. But overall, this run proves how incredibly powerful this weapon is. Even if you take it into the Void, where most enemies are very heavily armored and the weapon is mostly slash based, so it doesn't do very well against armor, it can still last for 40 minutes, and it's gonna do fine. And we're also missing a Bane mod, which is something you're gonna have against the Corpus, the Grineer, and the Infested, so you're gonna do 30% more damage against any other faction. And if you want to go for an endurance run in the Void, you can run for corrosive projections and swap corrosive damage for radiation damage, and you're gonna last for much, much longer than this. Sancti Tigris is without a doubt one of the strongest weapons in the entire game. The amount of damage it does is utterly ridiculous. Even if you take it against a faction that has armor designed to counter slash weapons, it's still gonna do just fine. You're still gonna do a ton of damage for a very long time. And if you use this weapon against the Infested, I have no idea how far you'll be able to go into a survival, because I've yet to go far enough where this weapon just stopped being effective against the Infested. It is that bloody good. So all in all, a very powerful build for one of the best weapons in the game, so I would definitely recommend you try it out. It's absolutely amazing. And that is pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching as always, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.